he wasn't carrying your disease right now, we wouldn't be here, most of us. That's how much the enemy hates you. So the power of Yahweh to carry your illness, because we are the sons of Adam, we are the recipients and the victims of the disobedience of the federal head of the human race, Adam v'Chava, and there is enough sickness to kill you when you were an infant, and you're not an infant anymore, you're not a toddler, now you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, and you're still breathing. That is the illness he's carrying, because if it was up to the devil, you would have been dead a long time ago. So don't think that this is some just Moshe doctrine. He's been carrying. The fact that you're here today praising Yahweh, loving the Father, fellowshipping with your brothers and sisters, mean he's been carrying it. To one extent or another, he's been carrying it. Yes, you're infirm, and yes, you're handicapped, but just think what would happen if there was no one carrying it. And when did this carrying begin? At the cross, right? Wrong. According to Isaiah, Matthew 8:17, it says, thus it was fulfilled in the day when Peter's mother-in-law was healed. From the time Peter's mother-in-law was healed, he began to carry our sicknesses and carry our diseases, and hasn't stopped doing so since that day. Todah Rabba Yahweh. Yeshayahu 52:15. I know the plans the enemy has for me, and I know the plans the enemy has for you. To disgrace me, to disgrace you, to shame you, to embarrass you, to expose your nakedness, and then to chew you out and destroy you, and put you in the lake of fire. But I know one who says, I know the plans that I have for you, says Yahweh, to give you hope in the future, to prosper you, and not to do you harm. Todah Rabba Yahweh. I said Todah Rabba Yahweh. Yeshayahu 52 and verse 15. He will sprinkle many nations, notice, with his blood. That's the easy part. The Melachim will shut their mouths at him. Now another translation says he will startle many nations. So some translation says he will sprinkle. Others say he will startle by sprinkling. So what startles or alarms many nations, what astonishes them, is that his appearance was so marred beyond human resemblance. Look here in verse 14. Many were astonished in the synagogue looking at this poor, suffering servant who refused to heal himself, and they're not interested in his messiahship, or that leprosy was a proof of his messiahship. They said, sorry, we're not buying. Physician, heal yourself and then come back. P.S. If you're going to show up like that, as a physical leper, we're going to give you a long walk off a short pier. And what is the next thing they try to do? Push him off the cliff. They took him to the edge of the city and tried to push him off the cliff. Remember that? Because they didn't understand that he was not just a Torah scholar, he was the leper scholar. And you know something? Today, if we don't get in the Spirit, this sounds like heresy. If I didn't have a revelation from Yahweh, I would think what I'm teaching is crazy, right? But when you start seeing it, wow. It didn't start on Golgotha. That man suffered, or the one who came as a man, suffered for his whole life, and that confirms Hebrews 5:7-8. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Look at verse 14. Many were astonished at him. His appearance was so marred more than any man. His form was marred more than any of the sons of man. So we're left with two choices. No human being was ever deformed, because they were at least deformed. This one was without form, number one. And number two, his lack of formation was more than any human being. Now see, I'm one of those crazy preachers. I take this literally. If verse 14 says that his suffering was more than the victims of the Holocaust, Yahweh forbid, but I've got to believe it, because I'm a literalist. That's what the word of Yahweh says. And if he suffered for 6 hours on the cross, this verse makes this much sense. This much sense. You see what I'm saying? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So what did he look like? If he had no form as a human, no, I'll tell you. Go to Tehillim 22, verse 6. Tehillim 22 and verse 6. If he had no form or comeliness that we should desire him, well, what exactly did he look like? If he had no human form or comeliness, then we should desire him, and we hid our faces from his putrid ugliness. I had some pastor tell me, take me off your mailing list. Another one. He said, yes, it's true, Rabbi. He was ugly. No, he was not delicioso. Pero no como tú pregar. You understand? Yes, he was ugly, but not the way you're preaching, that he was a leper. You understand? In other words, in the religious version of Jesucristo, he's just, he's not a good-looking dude. He wouldn't be on the cover of GQ magazine. He wouldn't be a cover person for Sports Illustrated. He was kind of ugly, but it wasn't what you're saying. Leprosy. Impossible. Take me off your list. All right, now go argue with this pastor. All right, you don't want to argue with me. You think your arguments are too elevated for me to respond to you? Okay? Try a little bit of this. Tehillim chapter 22, verse 6. Ready? You want to see why everybody wanted to throw him off the cliff? Right? Here it is. You with me? How many are with me? Let me see your hands. How many are sleeping? Can I see your hand, please, if you're sleeping? Tehillim 22, verse 6. But I am a worm. Here's Yeshua talking in the first person through the prophet Melech David. I am a worm and not even a man. A reproach of men, hated by the people. All who see me laugh at me. They scorn me. This didn't begin at Golgotha. They shoot the lip and the head. Okay, so his appearance was that of a worm. Before he started being beaten for our sins and dying for our sins, he was living like a worm, despised by the people. How do I know? How do I know? It says right here. Verse 9. You took me from the womb. You did make me tikvah, hope, when I was on my mother's breasts. His suffering began from earlier, before the cross, because Yahweh ordained it when he took Yeshua out of the womb, not to be like a man only, but to appear like a worm. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? He said, this suffering Mashiach is not a man. He looks like a worm. What does a worm mean? Without formation. He has no formation. He has no recognizable formation. Now you tell me you can do that in 6 hours of beating, hanging on the cross? I don't think so. He carried our sicknesses. Kings will shut their mouths at him, for what had not been told them they shall see. Who has believed our message? He was despised and rejected, so that men hide their faces from his worm appearance, his worm-like countenance. The great Rabbi Kimchi, the great Jewish scholar, Rabbi Kimchi, said, the words we hide our faces from him, listen, is because we do not wish to look at him on account of the repugnance we would experience by looking at him and seeing his horrible appearance. Rabbi Kimchi, one of the most hallowed, revered rabbis, said, the expression in Isaiah 53, we hide our faces, is the repugnance of his physical appearance. We hide. When Yeshua shows up, we go into hiding. Nothing can qualify for that except a formation that is not a formation, a physical leprosy. This is what the rabbis knew. See, for us it's difficult because we don't come at this from a Hebraic mindset. So for us it's difficult. Blessed is he who was not offended in me. The word naga, has been understood to mention stricken with leprosy. An additional Jewish insight is given in the Aramaic pet name for Mashiach.